These events took place 20 years ago, and they're still fresh in the memories of those who lived them, so much so that some even resorted to drugs just to try and wipe them from their minds. The names in this story have been changed for obvious reasons. The tale you're about to hear happened in San Francisco, America. It's a spooky, real-life story about a young boy left home alone. But unlike the famous Home Alone movies, this one doesn't have a happy ending. In fact, the events of that night left an entire family traumatized, and a young boy scarred for life. It was March 1991. George and Martha, a married couple, were getting ready for a very important dinner with none other than the president of the company George worked for. They were dressed to impress, waiting for one thing: the nanny, who had been hired to look after their 8-year-old son, Martin. As time passed, the nanny was running late, too late. The phone rang. Martha picked up. It was the nanny. She apologized, explaining that she was still at the doctor's office with her aunt and couldn't make it on time. George and Martha were stuck. They couldn't miss this dinner. George's job depended on it. But how could they leave Martin home alone? That's when Martin chimed in. "Mom, Dad, don't worry. I'll lock the door and wait for the nanny. I promise I'll be good." His words were so convincing that Martha hesitated. She wanted to stay home with her son, but after some more pleading from Martin, she reluctantly agreed. The couple left the house, and Martin, true to his word, locked the door securely behind them. He went straight to the kitchen, grabbed a bag of popcorn from the fridge, filled a large bowl, and poured himself a big glass of Coca-Cola. With a grin on his face, he sat down in the living room, turned on the TV, and settled in for a thriller. He loved this moment, being alone, no adults telling him what to do. He could watch a movie his parents would never let him see. As the minutes ticked by, everything seemed perfect, until a loud noise echoed through the house. Martin froze. It was just a storm, rain pounding on the windows, wind howling through the streets, nothing to be afraid of, or so he thought. The storm grew worse, and soon, the power went out. The TV blinked off, plunging Martin into darkness. He sat there, heart pounding, hoping the nanny would arrive soon. And that's when he heard it. A voice, faint at first, almost a whisper. "Hi, do you want to play? Do you want to play hide and seek?" Martin's blood ran cold. The voice, it was a little girl's voice, but no one else was in the house. The doors were locked, the windows shut tight. The voice grew louder. Martin's hands shook as he dropped the popcorn, his Coca-Cola spilling across the floor. He tried to stay calm, tried not to cry. Quietly, without making a sound, he crept to his room, hiding under the bed, praying the nanny would arrive soon. Minutes passed, maybe hours. The voice was gone, but the fear still gripped him. Then, the front door slammed. Martin's heart leapt. The nanny! It had to be her. He crawled out from under the bed, his legs shaking as he made his way to the front door. But just as his hand reached the doorknob, the voice returned, louder than ever. Martin turned, and what he saw made him scream. The neighbors heard his cries, and with the help of the nanny, they broke down the door. They found Martin on the floor, gasping for air, barely able to breathe. An ambulance rushed him to the hospital, his parents arriving moments later, terrified. Days passed, but no one could get Martin to speak. Doctors tried everything, but he remained silent, until one day, he finally uttered a single phrase. "She has no face, she has no face." Those were the last words Martin spoke, for years. For 2 long years, he was under medical treatment, but nothing worked. The family never discovered what truly happened that night. Then, 8 months later, rumors began to circulate about an old, abandoned factory nearby. In 1950, A group of children had snuck in to play hide and seek, but tragedy struck when a fire broke out, trapping them inside. Their bodies were so charred that even the medical examiner was horrified by the sight. Since then, strange things have been reported in the area: laughter, voices, eerie sounds coming from the factory. 2 kids, who had dared to explore the factory one night, swore they heard the same laughter, the same voices, and ran for their lives. Martin didn't speak again until he was 22 years old. Under hypnosis, he began to reveal the horrors he had witnessed, but the details remained shrouded in mystery. What exactly happened that night? Who was that faceless child? Was she one of the poor souls trapped in the factory fire? And more disturbingly, is she still out there, looking for someone to play with? I had never been so wrong. I don't want it. It needs to get out of my house. I thought it was gone. It started as a life-changing decision for us. Moving away from our hometown, forgetting friends, and starting a new life. The house we moved to was far from where we lived. It was about a 3-day drive. We moved from New York to Wisconsin. I was the most against it. I had a social life. I was actually pretty popular. I made friends with everyone. My parents were usually isolated in their house. They were the nicest parents anyone could ask for. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. They didn't have many friends, and most of our family was in Wisconsin. The ride was fun. I listened to music and texted my girlfriend, Leah. She was perfect. We had almost all of our interests in common. When we did get to the house, I was stunned. It was a beautiful Victorian-style house, 2 stories, already furnished. At first, I was a bit skeptical about how my parents got the money for such an extravagant structure as this. We spent most of the day unpacking. I took about an hour to unpack, then I started to explore. Everything looked so nice and new. The house had a nice smell of pine and was smack dab in the middle of a forest. There were a few parks nearby with soccer fields, which made me ecstatic. I was on the first floor, and I rounded a corner when I saw a door. The door was old, and didn't match the rest of the house. It was a weird shade of maroon or brown, and the handle was rusted. I jiggled it, but it wouldn't budge. I started to get progressively more violent with it, until it flew open with a clunk. An abyss of blackness was all I saw. I stood there for a good 5 minutes, just staring. Eventually, I started to hear a tapping. It got louder and louder. I still stood strong. I started to see figures dancing in the darkness. After that, I closed the door and walked back into the kitchen. My first night sleeping there. I probably got 2 solid hours. I kept waking up and hearing the tapping. I wasn't scared. I mean, what could a tapping possibly do? My awakening was startling. All I remember is having an intense nightmare about the blackness. I was staring at it, in the dream, and I started to hear footsteps, up the stairs. It got to the 3rd step from the top, and I caught a glimpse of the thing. It was terrible. I woke up drenched in sweat. I got out of bed and went downstairs to the kitchen, where my parents and my brother, Jordan, were eating breakfast. "Hello, honey. How did you sleep?" My mother's voice was soothing, and melted all my bad thoughts away. "Pretty good, better than I thought." She knew I was lying. You can never lie to your parents. "Are you sure? I didn't sleep well either." "It's okay." I walked up to her and hugged her. I didn't let go for close to a minute. I didn't feel entirely comfortable with the house. "Mom, do we have more waffles?" Jordan asked. He's 16, 2 years older than me. He's in 10th grade. I'm in 9th. "Yes, sweetie, just get a few from the counter." I let go of my mom and went back to my room to grab clean clothes. I showered for about 25 minutes, and I started to hear the tapping again. It was where the basement was. I began to dismiss it as just a pipe or something. Nothing to be worried about. Oh, how I've never been so wrong in my life. The second night, I didn't sleep. Third night, didn't sleep. Fourth night, nope. I began to fall behind in my classes because I was always napping. I didn't feel comfortable or safe closing my eyes in that house. No one had gone to the basement yet. I pondered that too, but didn't stress it. Yet every time I asked my mom if anything needed to be brought down, she'd reply, "Well, there's no need in that, is there?" I began to feel melancholic in the house. I grabbed my laptop and started doing searches. Uncomfortable in new house. Parents hiding something about new house. Tapping in new house. I got nowhere. I finally told my friends about it after a month of moving in. All of them had logical explanations. The fear and confusion changed to curiosity. There had to be something down there, right? I started planning in my head. If I could get home early enough, or deceive my parents, I'd have an excuse to go down there. I craved it. The unsafe feelings vanished, and I looked forward to going to the basement. The day came. I got home and had a snack, as usual, waited until the right moment. My dad slept through the day, his new job exhausting him. He went to work at night, which meant I was free to explore. I finally told my mom, "Hey Mom, I hear something in the basement. It sounds like a plumbing issue, which I've been learning about in tech class. I figured I could do some hands-on work to get a better understanding." "Well, okay honey, just don't be down there too long. Dinner will be done in a few minutes." I held back my excitement until I opened the basement door. The first thing I noticed was how wet and clammy the floor looked. The light was dim, so I took out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and went down 2 steps. My heart began pounding. 2 turned into 4, into 6, then finally I was down. Boxes were stacked everywhere, and there were a few workbenches. It was cold, damp, larger than the house itself. And then I heard, "Dinner's done!" I turned around and froze. There it was. Some creature standing 15 feet away. Upright, on 2 legs, resembling a humanoid figure, but it couldn't be. What was it? It just stood there, staring at me, right down to my core. Then, it made a noise. A tapping, loud enough to be heard from upstairs. My heart raced, palms sweaty. The lights went out. My phone's flashlight still on. I shone it where the creature had stood. But it was gone. I heard the tapping again. Closer this time, right next to my shoulder. I never looked back. I ran. I shut the door behind me, locked it, deadbolts clicked into place. I asked my mom if dinner was done. "No, honey, why would you think that?" "But you said..." Fear started creeping in. I never said anything. "I haven't started dinner yet." Over the next 2 months, the tapping stopped. I started sleeping. I thought it was over. But on the 12th night, I heard the tapping again. Then, at around 2 a.m., I heard my mom calling from downstairs. "Noah, come here." I took 1 step when I heard a whisper from my parents' bedroom. It was my mom's voice. "Don't go down there." I heard it too. Tears streamed down my face. The creature could mimic voices. It wasn't my mom who called for dinner, it was ID, manipulating me. I sat there, weeping, paralyzed with fear. Then, the screeching started, followed by footsteps, coming up the stairs. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door. Screams echoed from Jordan's room. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I grabbed my survival hatchet, stepped into the hall. It had Jordan pinned. I swung the hatchet, burying it into its skull. The creature screeched, and stared at me with those pitch-black eyes. It whispered, "Home, sweet home." Suddenly, the shotgun fired. Dad's 12-gauge blast hit it straight in the chest. It howled, before leaping out the window. And that's when I saw it again. The darkness. I've got two stories that still haunt me to this day, both from my childhood home in the quiet rural South. It was a small, peaceful house, but what I experienced there was far from normal. The first story happened when I was about 11, home alone on a sunny afternoon. That's when I heard a voice that shouldn't have been there. The second time, I was older, maybe in the 7th grade. Again, I was alone, but what I felt that day chilled me to my core. Was it just my imagination? Or was something else lurking in that house? I was about 11, maybe 12. It was just another regular school day. I got off the bus and made my way home, the heat pressing down on me as I walked. By the time I stepped through the back door, all I could think about was how hot I was, and how badly I needed to use the bathroom. Our house was small, really small. A 1950s-style brick home in a quiet, rural neighborhood in the southeastern U.S. It had 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, and a living room. It couldn't have been more than 1,000 square feet. Not many places for anyone to hide in there, or so I thought. I sat my books down and headed straight for the bathroom. I was sitting on the toilet, just going about my business. It was a nice, sunny day, peaceful. Then I heard it. A voice. It came from outside the bathroom door. It sounded like it came from the end of the short hallway that ran down the middle of the house. It called my name. Not my full name, my childhood nickname. The voice, it sounded like my mom's. But my mom was at work, and I was completely alone in the house. I froze. My heart pounded. I didn't know what to do. For a moment, I convinced myself there had to be someone inside. Maybe a burglar, maybe worse. I rushed to finish up and stood at the bathroom door. I held my breath. My hand hovered over the knob, and I was sure that when I opened it, someone would be standing there, waiting. I opened the door. Nothing. No one in sight. I looked to my left, then to my right. Silence. I bolted outside and waited for my mom to get home. When she finally pulled into the driveway, I was shaking. I told her everything, and she checked the entire house. Nothing. She told me I must have been hearing things, that it was all in my head. Maybe she was right. Maybe. It was a few years later. I was in the 7th or 8th grade by then. Home alone again. Same house. My parents were gone for the day, and it was a dreary weekend, one of those cold, gray afternoons where the light barely filters in through the windows. I decided to sit down and do some homework at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, dead quiet. From where I sat, I could see down the hallway, the same one that led to the bedrooms and bathroom. On the right side of the hall was the bathroom, then my bedroom. On the left side, my parents' room and my brother's. But my brother was a lot older than me and always at work, so he wasn't home either. I laid out my books and began working, enjoying the silence, the peace of the moment. Then, it happened again. From the end of the hallway, to my left, I heard a voice. A woman's voice. It said my name, my childhood nickname, just like before. Clear as day. My blood turned to ice. I froze, unable to move. The house, still silent. But the voice, it echoed in my head. I turned my head slowly, looking down the hallway. Nothing. I forced myself to stay calm. My jacket was nearby. I grabbed it in one quick movement, slammed my books shut, and headed straight for the back door. My heart pounded in my ears as I started to cry. I didn't dare look back. I ran to the detached garage behind our house and sat on my dad's red lawnmower. I watched the back door, waiting to see if something, would come out. But deep down, I knew it wasn't possible. No one had been inside, no one but me. I sat there, shivering for hours until my parents finally came home. I ran up to them as soon as they pulled into the driveway. I told them what happened. They checked the house. Nothing. Again. They told me I was imagining things. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a scared kid. But now, years later, my mom still lives in that house. She says sometimes she hears my dad calling her name from the living room. She'll walk in, ask him what he wants, and he'll say he never called her. It's probably just her imagination, right? Just like mine.